everyone! On this week's episode, we're going to talk to you about the true costs of bringing home your puppy for the first year. Bringing home your puppy. It's an exciting time for any family to bring home your new baby that's going to be a part of your family for many, many years. I get asked all the time what the cost that will be for a new puppy realistically. So today I have compiled a bunch of numbers here, and we're going to talk about the true cost. Now I've broken it up into 3 different sizes of dogs because the cost over a year can be substantially different depending on the size of your dog. So I wanted to give a realistic look for those who are looking at different breeds and trying to find something within their budget. Okay, so the first thing to note right off the bat is you want to get your dog from a really reputable breeder. Bargain puppies are very seldom a bargain. In the long run, they generally cost you a lot more in vet bills, generally more than what you would have paid for the upfront difference from a reputable breeder versus the amount you save for that purchase price from your Wanted Ad or Kijiji pup or Craigslist, or the puppy from the farmer who just happened to have a litter of little pups. Generally, those dogs, because there's been no genetic testing, usually not top quality diet, there's many factors. Sometimes they haven't been vaccinated early on. Quite often there's a lot of risk factors there, and a lot of them are unhealthy for life. Some problems you don't see from way down the road. So it is really important to get from a breeder whose main priority is to give your puppy the very best start in life, and that boils right down to the proper pairing, proper genetic testing, proper hip, elbows, and patella testing, which are the knees. Those things are all very important. So generally, for a reputable breeder, in most breed points, whether it is a hybrid breed or a purebred breed, you don't get anything for under $1,000. Okay, so if you're looking below $1,000 at a breeder that's claiming to be reputable, I would really do my homework and ask a lot of questions. Talk with your vet, ask them, because generally to raise a healthy dog, you'd be taking a loss if you're feeding good quality food, vaccinations, deworming, doing the proper testing. You would be significantly out of pocket as a breeder to sell a puppy less than $1,000. And that can change varying depending on the breed. Some breeds cost a lot more to breed as far as food costs, initial purchase of breeding stock, those sorts of things. Okay, so if you're looking below $1,000, I would really strongly urge you to check out a different breeder. So generally most puppies from a reputable breeder cost anywhere between $1,000 to $3,000 is the general price range, depending on certain rare breeds or breeds that are born by cesarean, like a French bulldog or an English bulldog. Because of the price of the cesarean, those can be more on the expensive side, above $3,000. So from a reputable breeder. So those, you have to take all those things into account when you're looking at your puppy. So that's the initial startup cost. Now these costs beyond that are separate from that. So I want to put that out. My costs I'm going to give you are not including the initial purchase price of your puppy. Okay, so we're going to start with the setup, which is your crate, your puppy playpen, pee pads, brushes, bowls, collar, leash, poo bags. Those can actually run you up to $300 a year, especially if you live in a condo and are frequenting parks. You do have to stoop and poop. That's part of dog ownership, and it's against the law not to do so. So investing in a good healthy stock of poop bags is important. Brushes for brushing your dog, those sorts of thing, beds, dog beds, those are all factored into here, okay? So for a small breed dog, and I did my comparison shopping on Walmart, they have a lot of really good deals. I'm not getting kickbacks for this, folks, but on walmart.ca, this is where I got most of my price pairing. I tried to keep lower to medium size, median end of the price point. I didn't go really expensive, really extravagant, just the bare minimum of what you need, okay? So for initial startup costs for your small breed dog, which is generally 10 pounds and under, you're looking at about $599, okay? For your medium breed puppy, for your startup cost, you're looking at about $100 more, almost, at $691. For your large breed puppy, your initial setup cost is going to be $903, give or take. Now you can certainly spend more, you can spend a little bit less on certain items, but this is your initial startup cost. This does include puppy toys, but it's all the things you're going to want to get together before you bring your puppy home. So this is so you don't die of shock when you go into the pet shop and buy all your initial stuff for your new puppy, okay? People think, oh, it's going to cost me $100. It's well beyond that. So you do need to be aware of that going in. All right. So, and then our second big cost is your veterinarian visits and vaccinations. Now, it is important to note, in Ontario, Canada, it is optional for boosters. It is ill-advised not to finish your puppy series of boosters so that your puppy is protected, mainly from parvovirus, but it is the law to have your dog vaccinated for rabies. That is not optional, despite what many people may tell you. Because of the human risk factor, it is the law, and it has to be done. So you do need to pay for that on a yearly or every 3 years, however long the vaccination that your vet is giving, or the one you opted to give your dog. Okay, so it's important to note that. So for your initial series of puppy vaccinations, if you got your puppy from a reputable breeder, it will already have its first vaccination, and it will have been dewormed multiple times. But you do need to keep up with the deworming and vaccination schedule. So usually most vaccines are a series of 1 or 2 for the initial booster series. So you are going to have to do, after you bring your puppy home, usually a series of 2 more boosters, followed by rabies after 16 weeks of age. So all that together with your veterinary consultation fee, which you have to pay each time you go, you're probably looking at $400, give or take. If you're in the city, it could be more expensive. If you're in the country, it could be less expensive. In the city, vets tend to have high overheads, so they have to charge you accordingly because it costs them more to run their business. So that generally about $400, and then your deworming, heartworm, flea preventatives. You keep up with deworming. It's advised to keep up with deworming for intestinal parasites up to 6 months of age. And then after that, it's extremely rare for dogs to get internal parasites. Very common in cats because internal parasites usually come from rodents, which cats eat and kill a lot of. So very common in cats, not so common in dogs because dogs don't usually tend to hunt and kill rodents and eat them. So if your dog does later on have intestinal parasites beyond the 6-month puppy protocol, usually they got it one of 2 ways. They're eating another animal's excrement, usually a cat or a dog, or they have eaten a rodent of some sort. Those are the most likely ways. Sometimes it happens, you're in the park, there's a dead squirrel, your dog has hold of it before you even realize, and you're like, no! Damage done. You might want to follow up with a round of deworming after that just to be on the safe side, but generally no, dogs don't have parasites beyond their puppy phase. It's important to note that all dogs are born with parasites. They lie dormant inside mom. When the puppies are born, they're born with parasites that hatch and pupate, and then we treat them for them, usually starting around 3 weeks of age. And we do multiple dewormings till they're 6 months of age. Okay, so it's advised to keep up with that. So it's always also advised when you take your puppy for its initial exam to bring in a fecal float, and your vet's going to check for parasites in that fecal float at that time. And it's good to follow up with the deworming even if you get a negative fecal, because depending on where the life cycle is of the parasites at the time, you may get a negative result and they still have parasites. So what happens is they float the feces and they're looking for the eggs to float up. And so if they're not in that particular life cycle at that point, you could get a negative result, but the parasites could still be there. And that's why we continue to treat to 6 months of age, so we get all the life cycles of the parasites. All right, so that's a cost that we have to wrap in too. The next cost is grooming, especially if you have a dog with long hair. A poodle, a bichon frise, any of the doodles really, a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier, a bichon Havanese, your Westie, your Corgi, there's so many, a Golden Retriever. I mean, all these dogs need grooming. I was a groomer for 15 years. And I can tell you this right now, the average pet owner does not brush their dog out thoroughly enough, despite their best efforts. That's why you need a professional. They know how to brush your dog out thoroughly and get every one of those little knots out and keep them in the best condition possible. It's a common misconception that it's okay to leave mats in your dog. People worry about their dog getting cold if they shave the mats out in the winter, or the opposite in the summer. They're worried, if I shave the mats out, they're going to have nothing to protect them from the sun. So these are actually two huge fallacies. The coat actually, to do its job as a heating unit for your dog or an air conditioning unit for your dog in the summer, it needs to be brushed out properly, because the air needs to actually flow through those hairs. If the air does not flow freely through those hairs, your dog's going to either overheat in the summer or it's going to freeze in the winter. They're actually worse off having the mats. Mats are extremely uncomfortable and painful for your dog, and they're very uncomfortable and painful to remove. If your dog has been swimming or has been bathed with those mats on it, there's zero hope that your dog is going to be able to, you're going to be able to recover that coat. The most humane thing to do for your dog at that point in time is just to shave them. Which is why I advise, if you have a long-haired dog, especially the non-shedding breeds, that they are groomed every 4 to 6 weeks. And your groomer is going to thoroughly groom them, and this is a maintenance groom, and if I would see my clients every 4 to 6 weeks, I'd have minimal issues with their dog. They were always in great shape, and this is what I advise to all people who are planning on keeping their dogs clipped. Certainly the longer your dog is left, the more attention it needs to its coat, right? So generally, a small breed dog, you are looking at, for grooming, about $540 a year. Again, this can fluctuate whether you're in the city or in the country, because overhead costs are more expensive. Again, a medium-sized dog, for grooming, you're looking at about $840 for the year. And then for a large breed dog, it jumps dramatically, because large breed dogs are really big and they jump in size quite fast, and they have a lot of hair to contend with, and they take a long time to groom. So about $2,400, believe it or not, is what you're looking at for a large breed dog for regular monthly grooming. Right? So our next one is another thing that I strongly advise that all my pet owners do, is obedience classes. I always recommend a puppy class followed by an actual obedience class for your dog. And the reason for this being, if people think, oh, well, I think I got a handle on it, and I don't need that. And I think that's great. You feel like you have a handle on that, but obedience classes are actually more for your puppy than they are for you. It really gives them an opportunity to socialize with a lot of different breeds of dogs, a lot of different temperaments of dogs, a lot of different people, a lot of different energy levels, and early socialization is key to having a well-balanced, confident dog for life. So to set your dog on the right path, whether you're an experienced dog trainer or owner, I always recommend this. So for the 2 classes, you're looking at roughly about $525. These are both 6 to 8 week courses. And it's the same across the board. It doesn't matter the size of your dog. It's a group class, and that's the group rate. These are the prices I found online for the Red Barn in Barrie, Ontario. Actually, they have an excellent reputation. And so that's what I used as my model for here. They can certainly fluctuate in price. You can go to PetSmart, which aren't the best classes. They're okay for the early socialization, but they're not really what I would recommend for an obedience class. And they can be cheaper. All right, so then our next topic on our list here of expenses is the spay or neuter. Now, the spay or neuter is very important. If you have gone to a reputable breeder to get your dog, you will be under contract to spay or neuter that dog, and you do need to honor that. The reason why they're so heavy on the spay or neuter contract is because we don't want unwanted dogs and perpetuate that cycle. Number 2, as a reputable breeder, you know how much work goes into breeding each and every dog, and the knowledge and the education that you've had to put behind that. If you don't know what you're doing to breed healthy dogs, you absolutely should not be breeding dogs. And so they don't want whoopsies. They don't want people that don't know what they're doing breeding dogs and possibly breeding dogs with issues. Just because you bought a breeding stock from a reputable breeder does not mean that that dog won't produce health issues in the future. So a spay or neuter is generally the price range you can look at for a spay or neuter is between about $350 to $1,000 or more. And this depends. Neuters are much cheaper. It's a pretty quick surgery. It's generally 15 to 20 minutes and they're done. It's more of a nip tuck. Whereas a female, it's a full-on surgery, and it's major surgery. So it takes a lot longer. So it's important to note that when you're having a female spayed, the price is always cheaper if they have not yet come into a heat. If they've come into a heat and or if they've had litters, the price tag will go up substantially on your spay. The reason for this being, it's a riskier surgery for both the dog and the vet. There's a lot more bleeding involved, and there could be blood transfusions and other complications. Generally, when the dog is younger, the uterine lining has not thickened, so there's minimal bleeding. They recover very quickly, and it's much simpler surgery. So it's always advised to have your dog spayed once they're done the bulk of their growing, but before they go into their first heat cycle. All right. So, and the next thing we're going to talk about is microchipping. Microchipping is something I always advise, and it is, if you have a CKC registered puppy, purebred puppy, it will come microchipped from the breeder for you. As a pet owner, this microchip is fairly useless to you. All it does is identify the puppy with the CKC for registration purposes. As far as regaining your dog if it gets lost, it's really not going to do much for you. So what you actually want is a microchip that has your name on it, your contact information on it, your dog's name, any medical conditions your dog has, your vet's name will be on there, all the ways to contact you, because if your dog went missing or was injured and somebody found it before you, you want it to get the most immediate vet care with the medical history, and you also want you to be contacted for your dog to be returned to you. So generally this microchip with a lifetime registration usually costs around $70 from your vet, and it's something that I always strongly advise with my client if your breeder hasn't already done that for you. Okay, and the last thing on our list is food and treats. Now, I lump them in together, and this is another large expense. So For a small breed dog, I base this on a good quality kibble. We always promote raw here at Legacy Cockapoos, but many people are still feeding kibble today. Most people are. So I base it on one of the best quality kibbles on the market today, which I believe is Akenna. They are a single protein line, grain free, very high in protein for your dog. Very high protein is very important for your dog, and I prefer grain free myself for a variety of reasons, which we will cover in a later video. So this is based on their food, which is roughly about $80-ish, give or take, per 25-pound bag. So for a small breed dog, you're looking at about $675 for the year. Really not too bad in the scheme of things. Mind you, they're eating very little. And then you have a medium-sized dog, and for the year, you're looking at about $1,320. A bit more expensive, but manageable. I breed medium and small-sized dogs, so majority of my dogs are medium, and it's a very manageable number throughout the year. And finally, our large breed dog. Now, that's a pretty big jump. They eat a lot. And we discussed in the grooming department, the size of a large breed dog gains rapidly from a medium to a large. So their food is about $2,944 a year for their food. Now, that's based on a large dog, not an extra large dog. So if you are talking about like a Great Dane or an Irish Wolfhound, you're looking at several more cups of food a day, and it's going to cost you probably several hundreds of dollars more, if not almost $1,000 more in food. They eat a lot. I roughly based this on more of a Bernese Mountain Dog kind of size. So those are the general things that you need for your dog. And the breakdown for the total for the year, for a small breed dog, everything added up is $3,537. For a medium-sized dog, it's $4,658. And for a large breed dog, we're looking at $7,151 for your first year. Now, there are some extra factors in there that I have not covered in this, which I'm going to talk about now, because this really varies by person to person and the situation, the living environment that you're in. If you are a single person, or a couple that live in a condo, nobody's home during the day, or even in a home, nobody's home during the day, and nobody's going to be able to be home with your puppy absolutely cannot be left alone for an entire work day. They are not capable of holding their bowel movements and their pees for that long. To expect them to do so is cruel. To not allow them access to outside potty areas during that time, absolutely. They will not house train at all. In fact, you'll have the opposite problem because they'll be forced to go inside and they'll think that's the appropriate place to go inside, is inside the house. So for the first while, your puppy should be let out every hour on the hour. But people have to go to work and do that. So what I always advise people do is, if you can come home on your lunch break, great. But that's still not enough for an 8-week, 9-week, 10-week-old puppy. Ideally, what you want is somebody to come in between your breakfast let out and your lunch let out, and then again between your lunch let out and when you get home from work let out. So you would need to make arrangements with a family member or friend who's able to do that for you. And if you can't do that, then you would have to hire a dog walking service or an in-home pet care service. They can range anywhere from $15 to $50 for a half hour. Now, if you had to hire somebody for 2 or 3 times a day until your puppy was proficient, for the first year you should have somebody walking your dog for the full year. If you're not able to be home during the day, at least a midday let out. But for the first at least 4 to 5 months, they need to be let out, at least until they can hold at least 3 or 4 hour periods in which you can allow the one visit a day for a dog walker. So you're looking for a price tag like that, you're looking anywhere between $5,000 and $13,000 for the year. That's a lot of cheddar for your dog. So that if that's your situation, be aware that that's the price tag attached to that. It's very expensive. The other thing that I always recommend my pet owners look into, you always need to have, the vet bills have not covered it all here, emergency situations. And you need to have a nest egg or a contingency plan in case of emergency. I always say at least $5,000. I personally have never come away from a vet bill, an emergency vet bill, for less than $1,000. Now, I'm not talking about an ear infection that I made an appointment and went to the vet with. I'm talking full-blown emergency vet care, after hours, have to run them into the clinic, and I've never come away with less than $1,000 in all my years of breeding. So you need to be aware of that. Now, if you can't come up with $5,000 in the moment and it's going to break you, then I strongly suggest that you look into pet insurance. Pet insurance gives you peace of mind, and if you can afford to pay a monthly amount, about $60, $70, $80 a month, and know that you don't ever have to worry about emergency illness or accident on your dog, and that they'll be taken care of, then that's something that I would advise for you strongly. So I always send home every one of my puppies with pet insurance, and I use Pet Secure for that. And I have based these rates or estimation based on their online calculator, and I just randomly pulled a few breeds that were within the size range. Now that the premiums can change to based on the breed, because certain breeds have more health problems than others. So it's important if you're thinking you're going to insure your dog, before you purchase your dog, you do need to call and talk to your insurance provider, because they don't cover all breeds of dogs. Some breeds have so many health issues that they are just a bad investment for the insurance company, and they won't cover them because it costs them money every single time. So you need to make sure that it is a breed that the insurance company will cover, and then go from there. So I always recommend nothing less than $5,000 in insurance coverage, and because there's usually a deductible of $100 to $300 depending, and that can fluctuate on how much you want your premium to be, and you can usually play with the deductible. But let's say your vet bill, an average vet bill, is $300 to $500, and you walk in there, your dog is ear and skin infection due to allergies. Now you've got steroids and ear medication, and you've paid for the vet visit. Okay, so you've walked out of there with a $400 bill. Your deductible is $300. You've been paying $64 a month for your insurance policy, and the insurance covered you for $100. Really doesn't seem worthwhile to me personally for $100. You've spent more in your premiums than you have actually gained from the insurance company. So I always advise that if you're going to have insurance, it's better to spend that little bit more and be covered for a large amount with a low deductible, so that you're getting the maximum benefit. So for a small breed dog, and I think I based this on a Shih Tzu, it's about $780 a year. For a medium-sized dog, and I based this on a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier, which was $864 a year. And for a large breed dog, which I based on a Bernese Mountain Dog, it was $960 a year, and that's with a $5,000 accident illness premium. You can absolutely get unlimited coverage. The more coverage you have, obviously, the more expensive it is. And all these plans monthly were in the $70 to $80 range. And it's something that if you aren't going to have money to spontaneously deal with vet bills, then you should do something like this. If you can't afford this and you can't afford an emergency fund, I strongly advise you do not get a dog. Dogs today are like owning a second vehicle. You got car payments, you got maintenance, you got upkeep. And if you can't afford to fix your car when it breaks down, your second car when it breaks down, you can't afford a dog. So please, when you're considering getting a dog, make sure that you consider every avenue. They're not cheap, they're expensive, and the quality of life and the length of life has significantly gone up over the years, and so it is a big commitment, and you need to know what that really means. So this is the initial set in to welcoming a puppy into your home. Now the second year is appreciably cheaper because you've already paid for setup, you've already done your spay or neuter, so those big costs are out of the way. And now depending on what vaccines you did, some of them last a year, some of them last 3 years, so you may not actually need any vaccines for 3 years. And then, so you'll go through when your dog's young, they usually have very minimal health issues, and then as your dog ages, just like people, your body breaks down, you start slowing down, you get arthritic, you may need medications for certain conditions associated with old age, and you need to be prepared for this as a dog owner because these are always going to happen. It doesn't matter what breed it is, no dog is healthy and virile to the day it passes. They get older, they get arthritic, they slow down, and they require more attention and more medications and whatnot. So when you're looking at getting a puppy, it's a lifetime commitment, and you need to look at it in the full spectrum of things, not just the initial startup, although that is important to understand because when people think puppy, they think just the purchase price. They don't think the ongoing expense that that's going to be, and you need to go into this eyes wide open, because today welcoming a puppy to your home is almost like welcoming a child to your home. Once it's there, the commitment should be firm and not just, oh, well, it was more expensive than I thought. I'm just going to give the puppy away or sell the puppy or whatever. It's terrible for the dog. It's terrible for your family. It causes a lot of stress all the way around. So go into it with eyes wide open and an education behind it, and really know what you're doing and plan ahead. It's a wonderful experience. It's a very rewarding experience, but you do need to make sure that finances are a big part of it, and you do need to know realistically what it costs to own a dog today. Hey guys, I hope you liked our video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and put any questions you have or comments down below in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you liked it, and I hope you found it educational, and that it was helpful for you new puppy owners that are possibly looking to get a puppy in the future.